first of all, thank you to everybody for taking time out of your day today. I'd say good morning or good afternoon, but it could be either depending on which coast you're on. Here in the Midwest, it's good morning. Welcome. I'm just going to jump right into the first question because that kind of is an intro to the purpose for this workshop and the purpose for this webinar. What's the difference between why more workshops? How is it different from the one-day regional workshops and two-day Great Game of Business in-depth workshop in Missouri at SRC? The one-day regional workshops are basically an overview of the Great Game and a mini game session with an overview and designing some mini games. And it includes a tour of a practitioner in different parts of the country, and you get to observe a huddle and experience an employee panel at those practitioners. That was meant to bring the Great Game to those who couldn't get to Springfield, and to make it just a one-day, see what it's like, dip your toes in the water, get the basics. The two-day in Springfield, Missouri is nothing better than seeing a living lab of a company that's played the Great Game for 30, 35 years. It's the birthplace of the Great Game, and that two-day workshop really gives you a lot more on how to implement, as well as the overview and the experientials of the huddle and the tour and the panel. It's how to implement and get started with the Great Game. There's also another offering in Springfield, a high involvement planning workshop, which outlines and details how to sustain your game over the long haul, how to involve all your team members in the game, in planning and creating your plan and thinking forward with 5-year strategy. The Level Up workshop was developed to fill the gap between the start and kickoff of your game and that high involvement planning segment. So many companies, whether they self-implemented, are new to implementing, or worked with a coach to get implemented, once they're 6 months, a year in, a year and a half in, the bloom is off the rose in terms of the excitement and the newness. And huddles and scoreboards can get stale, engagement can fade. The Level Up workshop is intended for both new and veteran players to keep the game fresh, vibrant, and avoid it being stale and less than lackluster engagement. We cover team scoreboards and other drivers that to get teams involved on a team scale that lead up to the all-company scoreboard. Michele, anything else to add there?
We're wanting to give the practitioners in this workshop more of a hands-on experience. We want this to be interactive to where we're putting our hands on and creating some things and learning some things together. And so instead of Kevin and I doing a whole lot of talking, we are going to be working together to kind of create some things, and it's going to be very interactive.
Excellent. Moving along, the next question is, how do you get buy-in from management? Michele, did you want to tackle that one?
Well, when we're talking about getting buy-in from management, someone has been exposed to the Great Game of Business and they see what it can bring to an organization. And one thing to think about is anytime you are taking on any type of organizational change, we have to share a vision of moving forward. And that's the beauty of the Great Game, is we are able to get everyone on the same page and looking forward. And so in getting management buy-in, the one thing that we can focus on right now is allowing everyone the shared vision of where the Great Game can take the organization. And this is one way that we can help you see how to focus your team moving in one direction. Kevin, does that hit it?
Absolutely. And to me, getting the education around the Great Game, and hearing it from an outside source rather than the owner who came back with the next best great idea for the company, getting the education firsthand can ignite that spark in people and say, this is something our company needs to do, or it can say, or it can enable them to say, I don't think we're ready for this, or I don't think it's time. Great theories, great philosophies, but to me, that's how we get buy-in. When we first launched the Great Game of Business in our company, 5 of us went down for training. And it was just all management. Where we struggled was after 6 or 8 months, it was still the management team, the design team that went down for training that was running the game. We didn't involve our people. So the more you can involve people, the more they'll be engaged. That leads into another question. How do I get, I'm sorry, I own a business that I oversee remotely. I visit the plant 4 to 5 times a year. I would like to implement the game, but I'm not sure how much success we'll have with me not being there on a daily basis. And once again, how do I get my management team bought in? Michele, anything on that?
This is kind of, for the person that asked this question, this is your dream scenario. Because once you start implementing the methodology of the great game of business, you are building business people within your organization, and you will be training everyone to think like you do. Everyone is going to be looking at their job performance and their job space as if they own it. And so when you get to visit 4 to 5 times a year, you're going to get to walk in and talk to the other people who are owning space in your business. And that's kind of the ideal world. When you can only be there 4 to 5 times a year, you've got all of your employees' eyes looking at the same metrics that you are. And that's the most exciting part of this.
And for me, a hidden benefit of implementing the great game that my brothers and I were partners in our business, we just didn't realize when we started, was that pretty soon the company doesn't need the owners anymore. The 3 brothers now work less in our business than we ever did before. And last year was our most profitable year ever. I spend 99% of my work year coaching the great game. And the employees kind of basically kicked us to the curb because they took over ownership of their actions, attitudes, and behaviors, and have driven some fantastic results in our company. People support what they help create. So getting your management team bought in really is when they drive the change, when they drive the implementation. And many times owners sit out the design team phase. They don't participate in the design team and let their employees run. And that's been really beneficial to getting that initial buy-in and engagement. Okay, that covered the initial questions we had emailed to us in advance. Are there any other questions?
Kevin, we just got one.
All right.
From Tiny Beans Meetings. Our company implemented GGOB last year. We have a huddle every week, but enthusiasm and participation has dwindled. I'd love to get some ideas on how we can get the employees engaged more in huddles. I've read your case studies, just hopefully want to get some other ideas. I can honestly tell you that sitting in on a Tasty Catering huddle is one of the most inspiring opportunities that I've had since I have been working with the great game of business. They have figured out the secret sauce to keeping people engaged and keeping people motivated. So, Kevin, I'm going to hand it back to you, but I'm just vouching for what I get to see when we're in the living lab of Tasty Catering.
And that's exactly what this workshop's targeted for. Our company's implemented last year. Now the initial enthusiasm has waned. How do we keep them engaged and fun? To me, the short answer is change. You know, if you're used to celebrating wins on your scoreboard a certain way, change it up. Have the employees come up with celebrations. Change the people in your huddle that execute the huddle positions. Change the huddle leader. Change the person that's writing on the board. Change the analyst. 4 or 5 years into our game, I realized that somebody from the finance team or one of the owners was still doing the post-huddle wrap-up or analysis on what do the numbers mean and what's our one thing to think about this week. I was in town for a huddle and none of the finance team was. They asked me to do the analysis. And I said, you know, at this point, shouldn't some of the people who have been sitting here for 4 or 5 years know what the analysis is, what the numbers, how the numbers are speaking to us, what are they telling us? And what's the most important thing to focus on for the whole team? So sure enough, I threw it out. When the huddle leader threw it to me for the analysis portion, I said, well, you guys have all been sitting here for a long time and you've been in these huddles for a long time. What do you think those numbers, what's the story up there? And after about 5 seconds of a long, pregnant pause where I was kind of nervous, nobody would speak up, somebody said, well, it's kind of obvious. I think we all need to focus on bumping the revenue up because our costs are all coming in line. We're hitting our percentages on COGS. Our expenses are in line. More revenue would equal more to the bottom line. And I said, absolutely, brilliant. And I said, well, what's the one thing we're going to focus on then? One thing we can focus on now with 2 weeks left in the month is everybody trying to beat the bushes and try to get a couple more thousand, 10,000, 20,000 more in revenue, because a better portion of that will drop to the bottom line.
Okay, a new question from Amanda. A lot of folks that work here look at GGOB and mini games as extra work that distracts them from their duties. How can we inspire them?
You want to kick that one off?
Well, Amanda, I don't want to give you a trite answer, but the one thing that we are seeing from science, the one thing that we are seeing as far as employee motivation and employee engagement is when they feel like they have a stake in the game, that they have a stake in something that matters. And so rejuvenating their creativity through mini games and inspiring them to have wins is one way to get them back engaged. Now, if mini games are getting bogged down, what we need to do is we need to break it down and figure out why they're getting bogged down. We're in the 10 steps that we enact, and that's the one thing that we're going to do through the mini game session of this, is we're going to break down the 10 steps to analyze how everyone takes each of the 10 steps on, where we do it well, where we might fall down a little bit, and how we can bring new life into it. And so in my experience with mini game practitioners, when people are allowed to be seen, heard, and know that their wisdom can make a difference in the company, that engages them to continue. And when they feel the win and when they feel that they've made a difference and that difference has been celebrated, it engages them more. That has been my experience. Kevin, what about you?
Just personal experience in our company. A year ago, January, our sales teams wanted to come up with 6-month and year-long mini games because they were tired, because they like to run them every quarter, which is awesome. They were tired of interrupting their busy quarter between first and second and second and third, and having to ideate and develop a mini game. So they said, well, we're just going to run one all year with quarterly goals. And I said, well, wait a minute, it's January now. It's the slowest time of year for us. Can't you just develop 4 now and have them on the shelf ready to go? And if something changes during your busy times, we can simply switch gears and we can move the fourth quarters up or the third quarters back. We can adjust on the fly. We can adapt. So they did that. We had success. So this year at their annual retreat, when they go away and plan their high involvement planning with their sales, they came back with mini game targets for each quarter and fully developed mini games ready to pull off the shelf. So it wasn't a hindrance or a bother to their daily activities. Another portion there is teaching people investment versus expense. Investment versus expense. To them, it's an expense of their time developing the mini games and anything with a great game. If we teach and educate what the return on investment is going to be for that activity or duty versus some of their other duties they have, what's the return from just filling out spreadsheets week after week, or one of their duties that might be mundane and boring and routine? Can we substitute that in for a mini game development period that's going to provide 20 times the return on investment of that other duty? Allowing them the time, creating the time and space for them to be able to work on the mini games and other great game activities really helps unleash that business thinking in them, especially teaching that what's an expense of just doing a chore versus what's the investment in a mini game ideation and what's the return on investment going to be.
Another thing that I want you to think about as well is we are going to break down and have a specific point in time talking about how to recognize and appreciate employees and their input and their innovation. And so we are going to spend time really working on how to recognize people in the way that they want to be seen and heard. And that helps with engagement as well. So those are going to be a couple of our focuses, I think, on day 2, right, Kevin?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And I just keep coming back to with most of these questions. In fact, it probably covers all of them except for what's the difference between the workshops. Is Ben Franklin's simple saying, tell me and I forget, teach me and I learn, involve me and I understand. We found so many companies lose that involvement after the first 6 months, or they don't get off to a good foot when they self-implement by involving their teams. This can't be an owner-driven initiative. It's got to be an owner-supported, and there's a big difference there. Okay, anybody else with questions to type in? The first step to great game implementation is start with the right leadership. So we're going to kick off the workshop with some tips, tricks, and tools for being a good leader, ideal leader in a great game business. I've found that if you don't have the right leadership, it's never going to work. When companies have not had great results or have suffered a little bit in their implementation, it's because the leaders weren't all bought in. The leaders weren't all on board, especially the ones at the top. They just wanted to take something off the shelf, plug and play. Starting with the right leadership is critical. I've had 2 companies that really kind of fell off the wagon after a year or 2, and both times it was due to leadership changing the rules of the game, leadership continuing to do what they did beforehand, command and control wise, versus collaborative. So we're really going to kick off the workshop with a open about leadership, starting with the right leadership. That's our first step.
All right. From Lauren Haley, is there a way to transform an unfit poor leader to be a more successful or better leader for a GGOB company? Lauren, go team. Yeah, there is. And the first step that we are going to have to take with a leader that is hanging on super tight with command and control is we've got to take away the fear that he is going to be able to unleash the magic and the miracles that are working in the organization. And once we start allowing that leader to let go a little bit and have someone else pick the load up, that is going to become a relationship that is going to permeate throughout the organization. And that allows a manager, a task-oriented manager, to become a servant leader like Kevin.
And quite frankly, it doesn't always work, Lauren. One company you and I work with, both Michele Webbett,
Yeah.
they were only a company of 9 when we worked with them the first time. And after my initial visit to the company and getting a flavor for the people, I told the owner, I said, I don't think Joe is fully on board, and I think Joe will be a barrier to implementation in the company. I would seriously consider either getting Joe trained straight from the source, putting him through some leadership management training, or cutting ties if the cancer is just too pervasive. The owner said, well, how can I lose Joe? Joe brought in the 2 biggest clients and he's tied to them. And if he leaves, those 2 biggest clients might leave. And I said, well, you got to kind of think of it as addition through subtraction. What's he doing with the morale of the other 7 people in the company? What's he doing with other new business? And you spent a lot of money and time implementing the great game. If he holds it back, that's wasted investment. Long story short is after about a month, Ron self-selected out of the company because we kept the pressure on him about doing the right thing, about following great game principles, and he just couldn't take it anymore. He left, and the two customers, his two biggest clients, ended up at some point communicating with the owner, hey, Ron was okay, but it's great that we've moved on from that. In other words, they weren't as exactly thrilled with Ron either. Or Joe, I'm sorry, I was gonna not use names. Sorry.
Okay, I'd like to bring up something too within our scoreboard session. And as we're thinking about the scoreboard session, this is going to be another place where leaders, managers, owners are going to be able to hand and start giving out responsibility to other team members for them to pick up and learn about. Last week, we were doing a regional at Peterson Caterpillar in California, and they did their team huddle for our group. And the beautiful thing was we had their union machinists come in, reveal their scoreboard, and what they did is while they said their numbers, they didn't just let the number go. They explained in vivid detail what each number meant. And so not only did they share the number, but they told us the story behind it so the scoreboard came alive. So that is one thing that we are going to focus on as we are working on the scoreboarding session is Kevin and I are not going to do a lot of talking about it. What we want to do is we want to enable the participants to be able to learn how to tell the stories about the numbers so the numbers come alive. Kevin, am I on that?
Spot on. When we initially launched, everybody is really concerned about getting their P&L based profit and loss or income statement based scoreboard up. And that's great for level one, and that's great for the all company scoreboard. We're going to take a little bit deeper dive into what team scoreboards look like. What cascading scoreboards are at the team level that lead up to the numbers on the all company P&L based or income statement based scorecard. And those can be simple, 3 or 4 metrics. It tells the people on the team what's winning and what's not. How can we win? How does our team win contribute to the all company win? How does that connect to our critical number overall for the company? And then connect the dot back to the final stage to what does that mean to the gain share and what does it mean in our pocket? That's the connecting the dots where both new and experienced practitioners alike sometimes struggle. I've realized that in the last year with some clients that I've had and doing a 1-day level up workshop with a client on their site, observe what they've done and then try to punch it up and make it better. Is that the dots don't get connected from the daily actions, attitudes, and behaviors to the team scoreboard, a very simple 3 or 4 line scoreboard, what's winning, what's not, to the all company scoreboard, to the critical number, to the bonus or gain share, back to their pocket. That's the intent of this the level up workshop, is to fill that gap.
Okay, Kevin, we have another question. Do you have any tips for running a huddle with remote teams? Most of our employees are in New York, but a few in a different country. So we run the huddle over video shared screen for the remote office.
Yep, that's how it's been done. We're coming across that more and more with the flex workforces out there. Hopefully in the New York office, they have a physical scoreboard. I'm kind of old school, and I insist with the clients to put up a physical scoreboard somewhere. Even if there's only 3 people that can get together around it and the other 15 are remote, just having that physical scoreboard and going through the exercise of writing the numbers in green or red lets us know, are we winning or not at a glance. Having electronic scoreboards, great. But the video conferencing nowadays is pretty robust. So getting those remote folks to remote in hasn't been a problem. Company I work with in Oklahoma City, 850 employees, and they've got distribution centers and sales offices probably in 15 different cities. They all remote in for the huddle, and they own lines, and they call out their lines and tell the story behind the number.
Okay, a question We implemented back in November and have had weekly huddles since. In the beginning, everyone was on board, but it's slowly taken a turn. We've had a certain design team member throw each design team member under the bus during the huddles, and that has left a poor taste in everyone's mouth. How can we work together to fix and reassure the company that we are a team and this is our company? That is a fantastic question.
You got the answer?
Huh?
You got an answer?
I think it is, I wish I did. I wish I did, except for the fact that this is an opportunity to show vulnerability within an organization and show the opportunity to, in a way, fall down and rebuild. We have to show vulnerability within the system so people are not afraid to make a mistake, because we make mistakes and then we build from them. We have failures, and if we learn from them, we don't fail again. Now, this is my opinion, but a huddle is never an opportunity to make someone a road bump. And that needs to be clearly stated, and trust is going to have to be rebuilt in this situation, and we can do it. There is no problem rebuilding, and in fact, it can be a very positive journey. But I can understand why people are a little nervous to speak up, and we can work on that, and we can be diligent about taking the steps in order to regain the trust.
Couple of quick points. One is that's that's why when a number is off in terms of the forecast to plan, when a number is down, we don't ask why, because that could be accusatory and kind of be pointing at somebody. We say, what's the story behind the number? That way it takes the personal thing off of it. We're after the story behind the number. We're not after accusing or pointing the finger at that person. Another suggestion would be we do autopsies without blame. When there's an issue or a problem with a number, all right, let's do an autopsy. No one's at fault here. What are we going to do to fix it? All right, we're not going to cry over spilt milk. We're going to work together to find a solution. We've only got a couple minutes left, so I wanted to talk about the workshop just a little bit. It's in Chicago. It's pretty all-inclusive. Shuttle bus to and from the airport. Meals are included except for the first night dinner. You get to see Tasty Catering, a service business. You get to see their huddle, have an employee panel, do a tour, see the team scoreboards posted throughout the building. And it's all wrapped around education. With Michele mostly leading the charge, and I'm playing second fiddle a little bit and trying to help out where needed. But it's all the things that we've seen with clients who have set up the game and then struggle a little bit. We want to show you what the finished product can look like and be, and how to sustain that game to keep it keep the boredom out, keep the routine, keep the same old out, keep it fresh and vibrant and new. Michele?
Kevin, who do you feel needs to be sent to this workshop? Who needs to be filling the seats at this workshop?
Just about anyone, from ownership to frontline employees. Anybody who's expressed an interest in the game, anybody who, even though their engagement may be waning, still is diligent about their numbers, and they can help bump it up. They can help punch up your game. It's also good for new companies, because we will touch on a great game overview and the basics of the great game, but then I think showing them what it looks like 6 or 12 months in a finished product can be extremely relevant to see the end goal where we're going to, and then we can work backwards. Mm-hmm. What about you?
Within the design team, and then as you start to roll it out, you are going to find people who step up and are very intrigued, take this to heart, and are champions of it. So within management, within leadership, within design team, there are also champions within your organization that I think this would be a fantastic opportunity, a recognition, a way to appreciate these people and to allow them to carry the torch going forward. So that's my vote as far as attendees also.
Excellent. I don't see any further questions, and we're up to 11:59. Michele, anything else to add?
Um, we are going to have a Tasty employee panel, right?
Yes.
Okay. So within that, that is a fantastic opportunity to take knowledge from actual practitioners who, this isn't Kevin talking. This is not the leadership talking. When you walk into Tasty, you are talking to the frontline employees who are champions of this. And you will be able to ask anything about what education they've provided, what have been the downfalls, what have been the positives that have come from it. And they will be very open and honest with you. And Kevin and I will be very blunt with you as well, as far as different insights that we've gained.
And also addressing one of the earlier questions about being remote and only being in the facility 4 or 5 times a year. I think there was probably 5 or 6 times this last year where none of the 3 owners was in the building for our huddles. I happen to be out working with, we all happen to be out on the road doing something or on vacation, and the huddle kept going probably even better without any of us there. Well, I want to thank each and every one of you for attending. Really appreciate it. We hope to see you in Chicago in another few weeks. Michele, as always, a pleasure to work with you. Any closing thoughts?
I am very excited for this. This is going to be a fresh, new opportunity for us to really learn from you, break down some new challenges, explore some new opportunities, and really freshen up the process. I'm very excited about this new opportunity.
Awesome. Well, thank you all. Have a great day.